Hey there, what up ladies and gents, it's your favorite Asian robot, and one day I'll be your favorite Diablo 4 content creator. But for today, what I'm doing is updating the Druid build because a lot of people have been asking me what's the mid game like. Now I apologize for the slowness in which I'm releasing these videos, like I would love to do it faster, but I also ensure that I really do test everything before it ever goes out to you guys. So that's the reason why it takes me so long to actually get stuff done, because if I don't do that, then I'm failing you guys, all right? So I just want to make sure that everything that I do is right, okay? And I actually test it on stream, like I actually play through the content before I ever make a judgment and before I ever, show you guys how to construct stuff and things like that. I even test alternatives and see what's the best, but a lot of the times it doesn't pan out because I've come to realize that some builds are very, very legendary dependent, some builds are not. This is a leveling build, as mentioned in the early game build, which is non-dependent on gear. So gear is absolutely irrelevant up until you get to about World Tier 3, and which is why the late game builds that I post are the only ones that talk about aspects, things like that. For now, all you're going to need to learn about is the skills and the spirit boons. We're not even getting into paragons yet because we're about level 40 with this one. And I'm going to show you how I built the mid-game druid, okay? So bear with me because I'm going to remove my cam now, and then I'm going to go through this. Let's refund all skill points. Okay, so the mid-game druid uses up about 44 skill points, okay? At least 4 skill points should come from your renown bonuses, and you will complete this build roughly around level 41. I have 50 skill points because obviously I've got all my renown bonuses, but I will only use up 44 points to show you where this build would go if you were just, picking up the game or whatever, and you're mid-game with a druid. You should have at least 4 skill points worth in terms of bonuses, but it's fairly easy to build a good build with just that, okay? So you start out with Storm Strike. This is your first skill ever. Enhanced Storm Strike. Okay, that's next. Come down here. Lightning Strike. Enhanced. Primal. Okay. Last point into Fierce Storm Strike, because vulnerabilities are the core of this. Cyclone Armor, Enhanced Cyclone Armor, and then Innate Cyclone Armor. This should be pretty standard. Heart of the Wild, Abundance. Okay, you've come down here. Now, rather than Nature's Reach, full abundance first. How many more points do you need? 3 more points here, right? Okay, no problem. What I found that actually works excessively well for me is that at this point, a lot of people go Nature's Reach. In fact, I talked about this in the last video. But if you want insane survival, okay, dump 2 points into Ancestral Fortitude. This will really carry you in the early game instead of this. Why? Because the 10% extra non-physical damage resistance coupled with the already 10% that you get from Cyclone Armor, and later once you get the Cyclone Armor aspect, this just goes pretty ham as well. Okay, let's just say that this gives you a total of 20% non-physical damage resistance. Add to that your amulet, and most elemental stuff is barely gonna brush you at this point. All right, so this is really, really good. You need 1 more point here, but we don't put it in here. You can actually stick it into lightning, right? Again, I avoid Nature's Reach until the later levels. Yeah. Okay, now that you've reached this tier, Hurricane. Now there's 1 point from an item, but just ignore that. Enhanced Hurricane. And then Natural Hurricane. If you find that survival is a problem, you can go for Savage Hurricane, but honest to God, survival should not be a problem for you. So Natural Hurricane is the idea. Then Trample, Enhanced Trample, Savage Trample. You need 1 more point to get in here, so you're going to put 1 point into Elemental Exposure. Okay? Now, you've got this unlocked, right? Okay. Cataclysm, Prime Cataclysm, Supreme Cataclysm. It's going to cost you 3 points, but this is what you want. Next, you're gonna need 7 points to reach your key passive. You spent 26 already. Where do you put your next set of points? Okay, this is where it gets awesome. You should put points into Endless Tempest. Why? Because Hurricane is one of your bread and butter skills. Very, very important. Okay, max out Endless Tempest, giving you plenty of Hurricane time. Then, all right, you are gonna want Bad Omen. Bad Omen is super good. 30% chance when dealing damage to a vulnerable, immobilized, or stunned enemy that a lightning bolt also hits, and it's anytime you deal damage. Okay? Do not sleep on this. This is so crucial. Alright? Bad Omen is super, super good. You need one more point before you get your key passive of Perfect Storm, right? So where are you going to put that point? You're going to put it into Electroshock. Okay? Now get your key passive Perfect Storm. Okay? Come back here, max Electroshock. Why? 15% chance to immobilize, and if an enemy is already immobilized by lightning damage, okay, then the lightning damage dealt to them is increased by 18%. Now this is where the build gets interesting. Okay, this is where the build gets interesting. What do you do here? Okay, what I would recommend personally is that you should go for your sustain first. 1 point into Defiance, 3 into Circle of Life. That's 40 points spent. Because at this point, you are going to need to start surviving. You can also grab Circle of Life early before any of these other passives, okay? If you find that you do not have enough sustain. Alright, so before you even get Endless Tempest, you can go for Circle of Life. Absolutely fine, alright? But what do you do with the remaining 4 points that you have? Okay, with these 4 points, what I would do, personally, is I would max out Defiance. Because by dealing 12% multiplicative damage against elites, you are in a very, very good position. This is excessively good, alright? Now, what I personally worked on was Elemental Exposure. You are going to want to get this close to max. I've left it at 2 ranks. I will finish it last. Why? Because you're only going to increase the vulnerable duration from 2 seconds to 3 seconds. Still useful for your other abilities to trigger. But now what you want to work on, okay, is actually, a lot of people think it's Lightning Storm. Fun fact, it's not. Work on Hurricane. Okay, why? Hurricane's damage increases by 10%. And this is 44 points spent. I plan on spending on Hurricane until this and this are maxed, okay? This is crucial for me because of the way that I play this. Alright, I play this in a very, very different way. I don't plan on getting certain skills because some of them are not as useful as you might think. Alright, whereas others are more useful than people think. It is in fact this Lightning Storm that is a lot less useful than people think. Having it at, just to show you where I'm spending my points, having it at 4 points brings you up to 52%. Now of course you could increase this further if you wanted to. But me, I just plan on sticking with Hurricane mostly because Hurricane is such an important bread and butter skill for you. And with some good cooldown reductions, it should, although you won't get it like immediately off cooldown, it should have very little downtime. And Hurricanes, because it does damage constantly, right? It's so useful for triggering a lot of your other skills. So this is something that you may want to consider. And in future, okay, assuming that you have more than enough non-physical damage reduction, right? You can take off, like when you really don't need this anymore, you can even take off this for extra points elsewhere. All right, so that is what I would do in order to max out Lightning Storm and Hurricane. So Hurricane and Lightning Storm are both going to be left at approximately 4 out of 5 instead of the complete 5 out of 5. Why? Because I want to stick my passives in other locations. I want to actually farm even more power for my passives. And one of the most important things is actually Nature's Reach, because this one pairs with your Cyclone Armor. Okay, it can give you 18% extra damage for a knocked back target. It's less useful against bosses, so this is something to take into account, but the same can be said of any other passive that you would grab. Okay, this is less useful against bosses. So what is actually going to be useful? Well, Nature's Reach is one of the last passives we'll be getting in this build. Why? Because it is far more important that I get Charged Atmosphere. I have a feeling that this is actually going to be useful because like every time you put ranks into this, it reduces the interval between the Lightning Bolt, but it doesn't increase the damage. But the Lightning Bolt will act together with other forms of lightning damage to basically assist you. It's like having a free skill that just casts by itself. It's just one lightning bolt. But like I said, it's like having a free skill that just constantly casts. So it's really useful there. Okay. And that sums it up for the mid-game build. Where am I going to go? I'm going to finish off this passive. I'm going to get Nature's Reach and possibly Wild Impulses just to benefit the Lightning Storm skill as well. So that is pretty much what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave Ancestral Fortitude at just 2 ranks out of 3. And later on, I may convert it to points for Hurricane and Primal Storm if I can, if I like, you know? I'll think about it. All right. But yeah, that brings us pretty much to the end. And thank you very much for listening to the skill segment of this build. All right. I know it was long, but I hope the explanations were helpful to you guys into getting into the mid game. Now, what I'm going to do is talk about the spirit boons. Okay, every druid should have their spirit boons, and if you don't, then that's kind of bad for you. What do you do in terms of spirit boons? Okay, early game, you use Prickle Skin, all right? Why? Because it's really good for the thorns. But I have switched to Wariness, because now is getting to about the time when butchers will start appearing often, and they will murk you really hard if you do not have Wariness. Taking 10% reduced damage from elites is very, very useful. It is what keeps you alive, even against bosses. If you find that you're going into like PvP, all right, I recommend Advantageous Beast because of the anti-control. Anti-CC is so good, okay? For your Eagle, all right, until your critical strike chance is above 25, I wouldn't even bother going for Avian Wrath. I would go for Scythe Talons, just to increase your critical strike chance. It helps massively in fights. For your Wolf Tree, Energize is standard. Pretty much every build is going to use this because dealing any damage has a 15% chance to restore 10 spirit. It's so good. It's so good. This should never be in, like, none of these others will ever compare, okay? Sorry, not sorry. This is the only thing you should get in this tree for any character. Okay, and of course, the snake is the one that we choose to bond to because it's got 2 very useful skills for us. Number 1, and this was nerfed for the Earth build. It used to be every 10th kill. Now it's every 20th kill. So the Earth build was kind of nerfed with this one. So I tried out the Earth build. Didn't really do it for me, but whatever. Overload. Lightning damage has a 20% chance to cause the target to emit a static discharge. This is basically like having a 20% multiplier on your damage because you just deal this extra damage on lucky hit, and it can trigger from any lightning damage, okay, which is really, really awesome. So your Primal Storm, even that random lightning bolt that comes down, this can trigger Overload. Calm before the storm is really good because nature magic skills have up to a 10% chance to reduce the cooldown of your ultimate skill by 2 seconds. This is super helpful because everything is nature magic. Everything is nature magic. Nature magic. Okay? This, well, the lightning bolt doesn't really count. Nature magic. Nature magic. Nature magic. You're all itself. Nature magic. So you are the nature boy. Alright? So you should be having calm before the storm. And that is pretty much it for the Storm Druid. Okay? Next we'll get into the combat clips, which will show you how the Storm Druid is played. But for now, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you want to support my content even further, you can even grab a channel membership. I'd be very, very grateful, eternally grateful if you would do that. But again, I leave that choice up to you because it does cost money. And I know that money can be very tight, especially after you bought the Diablo 4 Ultimate Edition. All right. But if you ever can, okay, consider it because I would be very grateful if you did. All right, thank you very much to the following people. Death92 at Plus Ultra. We've got Jerry Fast, Rogue Assassin, Oh Mr. Green Buff, and Zach MG, all prestige. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to all of our honored robots as well. Rena, The Mighty Zeno, Chase Taylor, Scuddy, Nathan Strong, Sabingu. Oh, yeah, Sabingu, AKJ, Lady Neo, Bob John, Joey Danze, A Ripley, Dara Reverse, Che D12, I'm Peep, Syed Assad, Tuan Nguyen, T King, Coda CMF, Kami SMH, Conrad C, Nate the Great, Corey Ryu, and Benjamin Savage. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to all of our cool and weird bots as well. I love you all, and I'll see you all on the next one. Y'all have a good one. Enjoy the combat clips, baby. Hey, what up, ladies and gents? This is me in the Mallwood dungeon, just showing the Druid combat clips. As always, we're going to do this the same way that I did for several of the other videos now. I'm going to show you common combat, alright? And then after that, I'll show the boss combat. So, how do you play the Druid? Well, plain and simple, you don't do what I just did. When you engage with enemies, you start by opening up with Hurricane. This starts by making them all vulnerable. Then you hit them with your builder, which is Storm Strike, okay? And then after you hit them with Storm Strike and you've built up your spirit, you can then unleash your Lightning Storm. If you do not have Hurricane on off cooldown, that's also okay. You can still unleash. Trample is mostly for elites, alright? I use it when I want to knock an elite into a wall, or if I want to knock a big guy into a wall and stun them, therefore gaining additional benefits for my Lightning Storm. But ideally, I always open up with my melees first, because it's absolutely crucial to get your damage reduction, as well as to immobilize and make them vulnerable if possible, which again allows you to take advantage of damage to crowd-controlled enemies, as well as the additional vulnerable damage modifier of 20%, which is absolutely excellent. Don't forget that your Hurricane also slows them, which is why we always open with Hurricane first. Your sustain comes from your Primal Lightning, so just don't hesitate to use that. Alright? And you should basically be good to go. Alright? If there are too many enemies and you don't have enough spirit, you can also use Trample as a spirit builder. Alright? That's absolutely viable. Sometimes I will do little things like that, you know, just to get my spirit up. But it also depends on, you know, what you're encountering. We haven't really fought an elite yet. Ah, there we go. Okay, this is a perfect time to showcase how this works. So, when you've got an event going on, you got to massacre all these enemies. Okay, no problem. Very easy to do. Use your spirit builders first, like Trample or, you know, your Storm Strike. And then once you have a full chunk of spirit, unleash your lightning. Don't be afraid to use it because you rebuild it really quickly. Okay? Once you rebuild your spirit, you go. And you just unleash lightning. Alright, this helps you take care of large groups of enemies. And as long as it's not been 4 seconds, your lightning can carry on from where you left off. So you don't have to build it up from the beginning again. Once you see an elite, that's when I will unleash Hurricane plus my Cataclysm. Alright, and I basically have practically unlimited spirit during this entire time. So I just unleash a huge wave of lightning to deal with the enemies all around. And I'm constantly healing during that entire time. And before you know it, bada bing, bada boom, it's all done. Alright? Notice that I'm not even using my defensive ability, which I absolutely can do. Alright? This is a separate technique. If I want to take advantage of distance, I would use my Cyclone Armor after fully building up Spirit, knock back the enemies, and then unleash lightning. That's another technique you can use if you find yourself heavily pressured. Okay? So that basically covers it for the Druid's playstyle. Now I'll just complete the dungeon, get to the end, and I'll show you the boss fight so you guys can, you know, see how we do it on the Druid. Alright? Catch you in a little while. Okay, so here's the boss fight. I literally had to go to a different dungeon because I realized Mallwood doesn't have a boss. Okay, Broodguard. So upon opening, I always build my spirit and use my ult first. Alright, so I tend to do that straight away. Then what I'll do is that once I've built up enough spirit, I will spam click my lightning because it'll actually fire off at a faster rate. Like once I've built it up, right? Once you've built it up to the maximum number of strikes, if you rapidly click it, it'll fire off faster than you do if you hold down the button. So you can use this to take advantage of a sort of like a fast cast. But remember that you have to pre-build it, alright? So usually while building, I'll still cast it once or twice, get it back up to full, then I'll spam cast it like that, which basically helps you deal damage faster, okay? This is an important technique to note, like that. Alright, it helps you so much. Because if you don't do that, and you don't maintain it, then it goes back to level 1, then you gotta build it up again. Alright, so it's a bit difficult, but you have to get used to that technique. And if you do that, then boss fights are over pretty quickly. Alright? So I hope that helps to show you how one extra technique for the Druid. and also how you deal with bosses. Okay? There you go. Enjoy, folks.